Good morning, everyone. I will now call to order the May 24, 2022 Clackamas County Budget Committee meeting. Today, we will be hearing presentations from various departments. There will not be an opportunity for public comment today. However, you may provide written testimony by email to bcc@clackamas.us, which will be included in the record and provided to the members of the committee. All oral public testimony will be heard tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., and we encourage the public to attend that public meeting. Tomorrow, Wednesday, May 25, the Clackamas County Budget Committee will convene at 8:30 a.m. to hear the remaining departmental presentations. We will recess for dinner and reconvene at 6 p.m. for public testimony on the departmental budget presentations. On Thursday, May 26, the Clackamas County Budget Committee will convene at 8:30 a.m. for deliberations and decisions on the budget. Our first order of business is approval of the April 20, 2022 Budget Committee minutes. The minutes have been previously distributed to you. I'm going to ask, are there any corrections?
I think one correction had already been made, and other than that,
I recognize Wilda Parks. And what was that, Wilda?
yeah, there was a correction that was made from the first time they were sent out to now, and that was just reversing an order of whether something was approved, passed or not. So with that correction, I would move to accept the minutes of the meeting.
I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Wilda Parks has moved the approval of the April 20 minutes for the Budget Committee. Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on that? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Mr. Karn?
Yes.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Mr. Rode?
Rhodes, aye.
Rhodes, thank you. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Ms. Parks?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Mr. Cernick?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader? Aye. Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes unanimously. And before we take nominations for the positions, I would like to remind all members of the committee we have a schedule outlined according to start times and end times. It's very important that we try to adhere to that as much as possible. And I'd like an opportunity for each of the members to have enough time to ask questions, if we could, and we'll just proceed in that manner. I will now open the floor for nominations for chair, and I nominate Wilda Parks as chair.
I would second that.
Nomination has been made for Wilda Parks as chair, and James Karn has seconded the motion. Any other nominations for chair?
Well, it sounds like this is organized.
Paul, do you have another nomination for chair?
I nominate James Carnes.
James Karn has been nominated for chair. Do we hear a second?
Seconded.
Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion for chair of this budget committee. Gary, what's the procedure on this when there are two nominees?
All right, so I recommend you do them one at a time. So the first motion was for Wilda. I believe there was a second. Was there a second for Wilda?
Yes, Martha.
So you should cover that first. If it fails, then you'd have an alternative motion for
Okay, I'm
James.
going to take the poll. Is there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none. Committee members?
Question? The reason why I nominated Wilda would be I'm new to...
You were the second on the nomination.
Yes, excuse me. I'm new to the Budget Committee. Wilda has been part of the Budget Committee for longer. I feel like I'm in a position to where maybe she is better qualified. That's why. And also being a new member, I thought, well, maybe it's better to have somebody who's been through the process before. So just wanted to state that.
You are nominated, sir. We will have a second vote on whether you will be the chair.
Thank you.
Oh, this one. I'm sorry, James Rhodes. Okay. I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
Commissioner Savas, didn't you nominate James Karn?
I did.
All right.
Oh, Carn.
So
I'm sorry,
this-
I heard
This
that
James is the other
incorrectly.
candidate for chair.
That's what I thought. I thought it was James Carn.
Right.
I'm sorry, my fault.
So because,
All right.
I suggest because Wilda was the first motion and seconded, you need to dispense with that motion first. And if it fails, then this next motion would be James.
Do you still support, Mr. Carn, do you still support your nomination for chair?
I support Wilda for chair, correct.
Okay, but you have been nominated for chair. Do you wish to withdraw your nomination for chair?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Savas, James has withdrawn his nomination for chair. Is there a correction that needs to be made?
No, again, I would suggest you handle the first motion first, which is Wilda. And then if that passes, it's done. If it fails, then you'd have another motion. But
Okay.
James does not accept the nomination, is what he's saying. He does not accept the nomination for chair.
All right. Caroline, would you please call the poll
Yes.
for Wilda Parks for chair?
Mr. Carn,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Ms. Parks,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
No.
Mr. Cernak,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Aye. Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 9-1. I now turn the meeting over to Chair Wilda Parks.
Oh, thank you. Do you want to pass me the gavel and the?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I don't need that, I think.
It gets
Yeah,
in the
I can
way.
do that. Yeah,
Go ahead.
right. This is kind of a tight
I
space.
have a
Thank
quick
you.
question.
Oh,
I have a quick question.
Point of order,
Yeah. I think it's 8-1 as we have one member of the committee absent.
yes, you
it
would
is
be
8-1.
correct.
I beg your pardon. I drew a line through my numerals when I should not have. Thank you very much, Mr. Accountant. I like your math.
Yeah. We have thank you. We have two other positions that we plan to fill at this point in time. One of them is one that we haven't usually done, but it's been sort of an expected kind of thing, and that is to have a vice chair of this. In that case, I'd like to nominate Tootie Smith as vice chair of the committee in case, for some reason, I cannot be here, then she would take over.
Okay.
So I need a second to that
Second.
nomination. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate James Rhodes.
Okay, so once again, so is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
All right, thank you. So once again, we have two nominees for a position. Shall we handle them the same way, Mr. Schmidt?
Actually,
with-
because it's done a little differently this way, you have options. You can do the first one first, which would be Chair Smith as the nominee and do a motion. Or you could poll each member and have them vote which one they would like, and then you can count the votes that way. So I say you have two options here.
I think it would be easier to just do the vote for Chair Smith, or Vice Chair, for her to be the Vice Chair of this
Right.
at this point.
Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Though I'm grateful for the nomination in the second, thank you. Much like my esteemed friend, James Carn, this is my first time on the Budget Committee, and I would defer to someone with much more experience, and so I'd like to withdraw my nomination.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that thought. Are there any other nominations? So we have a single nomination for Tootie Smith as Vice Chair of the Budget Committee for this week.
I'd just like to make a comment. That is, I really believe that the members or the officers of the Budget Committee should be citizen members in principle. And I'm going to vote with that principle.
All right, I appreciate you thinking on that. Thank you. And I just have to say that in all the years I've sat on the Budget Committee, I have been under the assumption that if something happened and the chair could not conduct the meeting, that the vice chair, who is actually the chair of the Board of County Commissioners, would by default be the chair or, step up at that point in time. And so that is the reason for my thinking and my reasoning on that, and adding with COVID and the other kinds of things that are going on, when people have to leave the room, step out, something might happen, whatever, I just think it's good practice to have someone who is actually in public stated as vice chair of the meeting. So that explains my reasoning behind that. So having no other nominations, I'd like, Caroline, would you poll the
Yes.
committee, please?
Mr. Carn,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
No.
Mr. Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
No.
Mr. Saranac,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Aye. Chair Smith,
Aye.
Chair Parks.
Aye. I believe the ayes have it. Oh,
Oh, they're not- I'm sorry. Commissioner Fisher.
yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, and the final tally is,
7-2.
thank you
Right.
so much.
6-2. Oh, no, you're right,
No,
7-2.
it's
You're
7,
right, you're
yeah.
right. Sorry.
And I do want to point out that one of our members is not able to be with us this week because of illness, so.
Chair
we
Parks,
will
would you
be
be willing to do
in-
we haven't done introductions of the committee. Would you do that at some point when you're ready, please?
Thank you, yes. If it's okay, let's do the other elected position, and then we'll do the introductions. I'm sorry, I forgot that, sir. Thank you very much for reminding me, I appreciate that. So the other position is secretary of the Budget Committee, and it probably is about the easiest job of any, on this. So I would like to nominate Ken Cernach for secretary of this position.
Seconded.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded for Ken Cernach for secretary. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, Caroline, would you poll the group, please?
Mr. Karn,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Saranac,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Aye. Chair Smith,
Aye.
Chair Parks.
Aye. So let's take a moment to introduce the members of the Budget Committee, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Shull, and then we'll come around this way. And throughout both that and the next 3 days, I would just remind you to speak directly into the microphone and be sure that your green light is on. And if there are times when you need to turn it off for some reason or another, just remind yourself that you do need to turn it back on for this hearing. So Commissioner Shull, would you like
Yes,
to
good
introduce
morning.
yourself?
Commissioner Mark Scholl.
I'm Kenny Cernak, public member. I don't know.
And you're a member of the Audit Committee for the,
Yes, I'm the representative for the Budget Committee to the Audit Committee, and I'm a CPA.
And secretary.
thank
And
you.
now secretary.
Commissioner Savas?
Paul Savas, Clackamas County Commissioner. One little thing, I'm sorry, but I think it's proper, if we could get Mr. Cernak's placard spelled correctly and replaced, that'd be
Oh, is it in-
beneficial. I think that, because it's on tape, it's on video, I think his name should be spelled correctly.
Take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
James Rhodes, public member.
Tweety Smith, Chair, Clackamas County Board of Commissioners.
Wilda Parks, Citizen Committee member.
Martha Schrader, Clackamas County Commissioner.
James Carn, citizen member.
Sonia Fisher, Clackamas County Commissioner.
And if we could have the staff that's in the room with us, because we couldn't do any of this without staff, let's start with Elizabeth, but I'm going to skip Gary because then I'm going to come back to him for the budget message. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director with Clackamas County.
Hi, Carolyn Hill, clerk to.
Sandra Montoya, Budget Manager.
Okay, and we have audio people in the room with us also, audio-visual people. So thank you very much for the great work you all do. Appreciate that. I would now turn it over to our County Administrator, Gary Schmidt, to present the budget message.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Budget Committee, resilient. Resilient. The Oxford Dictionary defines resilient as the ability of people or things to recover quickly after something unpleasant. The ability of a substance to return to its original shape after it's been bent, stretched, or pressed. Members of the Budget Committee, Clackamas County is resilient. Our employees and you as elected officials and you as members of the public, we've been through quite a last 2 years, haven't we? The COVID pandemic continues. We've had wildfires. We've had ice storms. We're helping to meet a state certification deadline for elections results. No matter what comes, we are resilient. We continue to serve the public of Clackamas County. Our employees, our elected officials have shown incredible courage, professionalism, and dedicated service to the public over the last 2.5 years. So I extend my gratitude to all of you, and especially our county employees. Without complaint, they step in, they lean in, they do what it takes to serve the public. And I'm so proud and grateful to them. Members of the Budget Committee, I will give a quick highlight of my proposed budget to you. It is online, it's in your binders. Here are the highlights. The proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 budget for the general county government is $1,164,620,439. Including our 8 county service districts, the total county budget is $1,646,911,717. Phew, that's a lot of money. And most of it is one-time only money that's coming from the state or federal government for COVID relief. This budget is balanced, this proposed budget is balanced, and in my view, and we'll discuss this, it is sustainable pending, here's the asterisk, pending final Board of Commissioner approval for several major capital construction projects, namely a county courthouse and 2 libraries in Gladstone and Oak Lodge. In general, our revenues are exceeding our expenses, yet we still have an issue in upcoming years. But if all things staying equal, in my view, and we'll talk about it, this budget is sustainable, but there are major projects coming up that need to be reflected in this future budget. And let me jump right into that. Committee members, you in April, when you met this year, April 2022, you saw the budget forecast for Clackamas County. Now, that is not in your binder today, and it's not online, but you saw it in April. It is online if you want to go back to the April Budget Committee meeting. And we shared with you then, I shared with you then, to accommodate for the construction of the county courthouse and the 2 libraries in Gladstone and Oak Lodge, for the general fund contribution to these 3 construction projects, the county general fund will need to be reduced by $15 million over 3 fiscal years to meet that demand on the county's general fund. So the proposed budget you see before you today is only reducing the county's general fund by $2 million. And I want to tell you the reason why I'm proposing that. I will do this unless you direct me otherwise, is for the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. So not this upcoming July, but a year from now, July 2023 to 2024, I'm going to propose to the Budget Committee a $13 million reduction in the county's general fund. I'm going to propose that we streamline county government to focus on the board's priorities, we'll talk about that in a moment, and what is most essential or required of county services to the public. In my opinion, over many, 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 many years, we have added and added and added, and we have to be really responsible with the limited public dollars we have. The reason I am not doing or proposing a deeper cut to the general fund this year is this is a long runway to make this level of reductions, a long runway, and I really would prefer to collaborate with departments, with staff, to do this thoughtfully and strategically, and then to bring it to you and with guidance from you as a Budget Committee throughout the year so that we are able to make these really serious and thoughtful reductions for 2 fiscal years from now. The total general fund budget in this current upcoming fiscal year is $160.3 million. Of that amount, I'm proposing that $97.8 million goes to public safety in Clackamas County. I've heard it very clear by the Board of County Commissioners and this Budget Committee that public safety is one of, if not the top priority for our public and for you. $97.8 million is going to public safety, which includes the Sheriff's Office, District Attorney's Office, Community Corrections, and the Juvenile Department. I'm looking at the holistic view of public safety in Clackamas County. It's not just the Sheriff's Office, but it includes these other offices as well. So $97.8 million of the $160 million general fund is 61%. So the number's increasing, and rightly so, to show the level of commitment of this board to public safety. Yet that shows there's not much space here to make these reductions I'm proposing in 2 years, which is why I'm requesting you give us enough runway, yourself and our staff, to get ready for that. The proposed budget you see is aligned with Performance Clackamas and the Board of Commissioners' 5 strategic priorities on this amazing sheet, which most of you, all of you should have in front of you. We'll get this in front of all of you. And those 5 strategic priorities are: build public trust through good government, build a strong infrastructure, grow a vibrant economy, ensure safe, healthy, and secure communities, honor, utilize, promote, and invest in our natural resources. The presentation by appointed directors today and tomorrow, actually, we're doing it a bit different than prior years. We're going to present those budgets by your 5 strategic priorities to really focus and help you understand exactly how much money, public's money, you're spending on each of these 5 priorities. Contingency is at the board-directed policy direction of 5%, which is $27.6 million. Reserve is at the board policy directive at 15%, which is $26.1 million. The full-time employee count, or FTE count, is 2,406 employees, which is 39 FTEs higher than last fiscal year. This is almost primarily due to short-term, one-time only staffing for COVID-related activities, which is funded by state and federal funding. When those funds end, the positions end. So I know next fiscal year, those 39 will be gone, and perhaps more based on the proposal of $13 million in general fund to present to you next year. So that is a real high level of my budget message. I want to respectfully remind you of your protocol for the next 2 days or 3 days. Committee members, you have received a proposed budget. It is now up to you as the Budget Committee to accept, reject, or modify this proposed budget. It is entirely in your hands now. A reminder of your authorities. Each committee member has 1 vote and equal authority. Approval of any changes to this proposed budget requires a majority vote, which is 6 votes out of the 10 members. This holds true even if not all 10 members are present. That is the case. Public member Jan Lee will not be here this week, so there's only 9 of you participating, yet still 6 of you must make any decision, or a majority of 6 is required to make a decision. Budget Committee members, you are prohibited from discussing or deliberating on the budget outside of the Budget Committee meetings this week. And this is my addition. If you do choose to make any budget additions to the general fund programs, you will need to direct me what cuts you wish to make to other general funded programs. It's pretty flat, so any changes you make will have to be reduced elsewhere. I want to thank all the staff who've worked diligently on this proposed budget for 6 months. That's right, 6 months staff has been working on this. Every department, director, their leadership teams, and in particular, our budget team in the finance department, led by Elizabeth Comfort, the finance director, Sandra Montoya, our budget manager, and the rest of the budget team, Blaze Riggins, Priscilla Montoya, Jian Zhang, and Roxanne Fisher. Thank you all for your outstanding work. I will stop talking at this point, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the budget message or the proposed budget in general. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So a couple of items just for the knowledge of everyone. We're going to try to do like 50% presentation, 50% Q&A on all of the departments, including the budget message. It comes out, we've got about 15 minutes for any questions to Administrator Schmidt. Also, I am not using the, I don't know what that's called, the keyboard. So what I would like to have people do is either raise their hand or their card. The card's a great idea, Commissioner Shull. Jamie, it would be difficult for me to see yours, so raise it up high. Don't just set it up on end. And we'll continue through that. Well, there you go. And then when you turn it up, then I know.
Like that.
Got it. Yeah, got it. That's great. So at this moment, we have, and there are probably other, many questions that you guys may have. I have a few, at least just points of clarification, so I'll come back to those. But so we want to be sure we give everybody an opportunity to have as much discussion as they want. So we'll start with Mr. Savis.
Yeah, thank you. So Gary, when you were mentioning 15 million over 3 years, was that 15 million each year or 5 million each year?
5 million each year for 3 years.
Okay, and this represents 2 million, this budget, in cuts.
Correct.
Okay, and where were those cuts?
They were primarily in health, housing, and human services, and transportation and development, the deeper cuts, but almost every other department also took a slight haircut or reduction.
Okay, and because those departments are funded with non-property taxes primarily, Health, Human Services, and DTD is funded by fuel taxes and so forth, I don't know that that $2 million is really relevant as it relates to the projects you're pointing out. So with that, my comments are going to be focused right now on the general fund, because that's what's in jeopardy here. I want to point out that last year, I verbalized very clearly that I accepted the budget, knowing it was a status quo budget, but with the assurances of the county administrator that we would be making these cuts this year, not another status quo. And that one-time monies that are being spent, I'm approximating roughly, frankly, I think we're probably using one-time monies of roughly $6 to $7 million per year that we could have cut last year, which we could have cut this year, and that adds up considerably. So those are lost monies if those numbers are correct. I want to point out this to everyone. The red box, which is on the first page of the budget message as well, the first bullet reads, by July 1st, 2022, the county's budget will be structurally sound, sustainable, and 100% tied to results. And why this might be sustainable in a definition of sorts, it is not structurally sound. I also want to express, and I coined the phrase here a long time ago, the jaws of death, and you mentioned that, Gary, that the expenses are outpacing revenues. I think it's in far worse than it really is. It appears to be in the budget material. So I'm looking at the forecast that we all had in April. We just approved the minutes for, and it shows, if I'm not mistaken here, that property tax revenues on this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, but it looks like for fiscal year 21-22, it's approximately, compared to the year prior, there's about a $3 million increase. And what do we think where is that reflected here? Because it shows, as I look at taxes, and maybe those are not really broken out in property tax, what is the actual property tax increase? Because the 139, and on page 1, the 139 is quite different than the 158, $178 million reflected. So what is the annual increase in property taxes?
If I may interject just here real quickly, Commissioner Savas has a document that the others of us saw way back in April. I don't think any of us have that document in front of us. I don't believe the staff has, nor do any of the committee members. So how can we keep this conversation concise and give others the opportunity to speak and speak directly to the issues or questions that may be in the budget? So
I don't disagree with that. And that's why I asked the finance director before the meeting to distribute that out to everyone so you'd all have it.
So perhaps we can get that.
So my point is this. My point is this. If we're just going to have a status quo budget and we're not actually going to be budgeting for the future, I've got grave concerns. And with all you have in all of this, I want clarification on what these numbers really are.
Right,
because
thank you.
my estimates are that the expenses are way outpacing our revenues, not just a little bit, not just what it was last year.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. So Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. I just want to make a point of clarification, what our charge here today is. It is not the charge of this budget committee to forecast future years. That is up to our county administrator, our budget manager, and Elizabeth Comfort, our finance director. Our charge here today is to approve or not approve the budget as presented to us. I would highly disagree in Commissioner Savas's statement that the general fund is in jeopardy. On this budget, I do not believe the general fund that is in jeopardy. like I said, we need to move forward on this. We can philosophize and we can argue all day long, but I believe that we need to move ahead. We need to accept the presentations as outlined in the schedule and move forward with that. I think there will be ample opportunity in the future for the BCC to deliberate and make decisions on the budget for the future. But members, I ask you to stay focused on what your charge is today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I respectfully disagree that the state budget law is very clear what our charge is.
Thank you. And I have a question for Administrator Schmidt regarding, I'm sorry, those things don't want to work. On tab 1, page 10, talking about ARPA, I think that the public might be interested in where those funds go and how to access, especially, like the nonprofits. I don't know exactly what that means. Is that business-oriented? Is it charitable, health-oriented, or, or something like that? And let me see, I have another note here. Yeah, so I just thought that for curiosity's sake, they might have an interest in that, and I wondered if the more detail is on the website.
Yes, it is. It's on the county website, www.clackamas.us/recovery. It shows the amount of money the county has received to date, how the Board of Commissioners has authorized to spend that money, and then how that money is being distributed. So yes, all that's on the website. Quickly, yes, the board has authorized funds for business support and for nonprofit support. We are in the process of distributing those funds. They're not entirely distributed yet, but we're working on that right now to make sure that gets out, and there's criteria the board has authorized us on how to spend those dollars.
And also back on tab 1, page 8, can you talk just a little bit more about the expected revenue from the state of Oregon in regards to building the county courthouse?
Yes, the state has agreed to fund 50% of the construction costs of new county courthouses across the state. As you all know, the county governments are required to build and maintain courthouses. The employees inside are state employees. So the state has already authorized $94.5 million for our construction of the county courthouse. Now, we don't have the final numbers yet on the total cost of the courthouse by our public-private partner contractors who are bidding for this process. Of course, you all know the costs have gone up. They have had to because of the high cost of construction and the world right now, and inflation. But until we see those final numbers, we are expecting the state will fund half the cost, even if the cost has gone up. That's our expectation. The state has done that for other county courthouse projects within the state. So that is our expectation if the costs indeed go up. We'll know more in June. We're going to brief the Board of Commissioners in June on the costs and what the bid results are.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Commissioner Savas, I know you have your card up. I have one more question, which I think will probably be a quick answer. On tab 1, page 24, and number E, where you talk about suicide prevention, I don't see anything there that focuses on the teens, and I understand that that's become quite an issue, and I just wondered if there's more information somewhere that people might access just to be able to have a sense of assurance that there are programs for our teenagers.
Absolutely, we support youth as well, and I will have to get that. I'm sure it's on our county website, but I'll get that information for you later this morning.
Okay, yeah, even if it's available on the county website, we can direct people to there. That would be great. But we all know that, at least I believe, in my opinion, there's been a lot of angst throughout the citizens, regarding that. So thank you, I appreciate that. So, Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I'd just like to know, as a member of the Budget Committee, like to know when we can get clarification as to the beginning balance of this fund, not forward-thinking, but there's a discrepancy that's, again, $140 million of taxes, and it displayed in tab 1, page 6, it represents fiscal year 21-22 at $158 million. That's a discrepancy of about $19 million. I'd like to know what the real number is, and it shows an increase to 178 of $20 million. So I'd like clarification of those numbers and why there is a discrepancy from fiscal year '21 of the document we had just a few weeks ago. That's just like to know when I can get that answer.
Sandra, can you answer that now, please?
Yes, Sandra Montoya, Budget Manager. Commissioner Savas, I think what you're looking at is an all-county page, and there's a distinction between the general fund. So the beginning pages that you're looking at is all county, all funds, and then the forecast is just general fund. So in the financial summary section of your binder, there is the last 4 or 5 pages are general fund specific. So if you compare those general fund specific pages to the all county pages, you'll start to see the differences, and the forecast should tie almost exactly to the general fund numbers.
Okay, so that other additional $16 million differential is what taxes then?
I can get that answer for you if you're looking for specifics, because it's made up of, we have 24 funds in the county, and so I would need to get the breakdown for you.
Okay, so the annual increase of the general fund property taxes is how much this year projected?
Okay, give me 1 second.
Well, again, she may not have that information right in front of her. Could we defer that question? We have a few more minutes, and we have 2 people. And Elizabeth, you have a comment in there, too. I want to be sure we get everybody and stay on time as much as possible.
Yeah, if I could, Elizabeth Comfort, if I can direct folks to tab 1, page 8. In about the middle, there's a header that says key revenues, and it does break down. And I understand that there is a confusion when you see countywide versus just general fund, and that happens within the office too, so no worries. But there we describe that the general fund property tax will increase about $7.8 million, or excuse me, 7.8%, or about $11 million. The $20 million includes our CCSO levy taxes as well. Let's see, which is part of that. So that's $9.1 million. So there is a couple of different taxes included in countywide property tax collection.
Okay, I'd like to move on to our other 2 folks with questions. So Commissioner Shull and then Commissioner Fisher.
Yes. Administrator Schmidt, the plan to reduce cost personnel for the 24-25 year is a good idea, but we need to be really cautious about personnel costs, that being our biggest expense in the county. $16.3 million increase over this fiscal year to the next fiscal year for payroll. We had a 4.5 COLA, that's part of that, and benefits. And then, of course, our PERS costs range from 21% to 26% of payroll. We have, in fact, grown the size of the FTEs in the last few years. We were at 130 less in FY 19-20. We know that the 39 COVID go away as soon as the COVID money is done. So we can start working on holding back costs this year by making sure we don't grow our FTEs, maybe not backfilling retirees. But one more thing, too, I want to mention here in this budget is that although the Budget Committee has visibility on many things in the budget, including a decision on COLA, one thing we don't see is step increases and raises in personnel pay that affect this bottom line. So that's another thing we need to keep an eye on, is step increases in pay. I know there's requirements on that, but we need to be aware of it. And I think the board, the Budget Committee, also needs to get some visibility on that in this next fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I just want to, just as we get started, make sure that we are all really mindful that we are all trying to follow along whenever there are questions, and each of us to state where we're looking, not just page this, but where on the page, and so that we can follow up. And if there are documents that we don't all have, let's submit questions to staff, and then we have time for discussion, and then we can all follow along, so that we really maximize the time for all of us in following along with what the discussion is. I think that's really important. I just wanted to put that out there as we get started, before we get too much farther into
I
this.
certainly agree with that. And yeah, and I should have mentioned that too, that when you are asking a question, try to reference the tab number and the page number and where on that page, those kinds of things occur. So, all right.